Hey, what's up? I'm Andrew with Field Treasure Design. So this is my mobile shop vac cart that has a dust stopper, dust separator on the top with a 5-gallon bucket right here. And so I first got this idea from John over at John Builds It, his YouTube channel, and I decided to make my own and show you a video of how I made it as well. But it's very simple. It's PVC, spray painted black with a nice 3/4 inch plywood top, holes cut out for all of your different parts, and then the bucket of course sits at the top. And now this is a really cool, useful tool in your shop because it helps separate all of that dust that you vacuum up and it gets it into this bucket, not down into your filter. I've got one under my miter saw right now that doesn't have a separator, and as you can see, wow, it gets really clogged. So this was not very hard to build, and I added a few extra features like a little cord wrap to make it accessible up here, as well as a little clip to hold the bucket on and little things like that. But it's really easy to build, and I'd love to show you how I made mine, so check this out. Oh yeah, the fun begins by unboxing a brand new Ridgid shop vac. Doesn't quite have that new car smell, but that's all good. Tapped into casters, which I might upgrade later, but good to go for now. After I've got the vacuum all assembled, I can start laying out all of the PVC that I'm going to be using for the legs. The first step was to take that 2-inch pipe, which is laying there in the back, and cut it down to the right lengths. After I cut the 4 pieces, you can see there that they fit easily into that coupling. That coupling is for the bottom of the leg. A few taps just to make sure it's secure, and we can continue assembling. Okay, now we add the reducer on the top. This takes the pipe down from 2 inches to 1.5 inches so that it can go around the top of the lid of the vacuum. I'll show you that in just a second. So the standard circle cutouts that you see there for the vacuum attachments to go in are the perfect size for the 2-inch couplers to fit in. I put the foot in there and it fits great. Then I put my 1.5 inch diameter PVC into the bottom, and I use that one to get a measurement with my bucket of how long I want each leg to be. After I got the measurement, I took them over to the miter saw and made 4 cuts. Here, I'm making sure the feet are secure. What I didn't realize is that they weren't going all the way down, and I needed to get longer ones. I'll show you that later. Now you can see why reducing it to 1.5 inches is perfect, so that the pipe can run around the lip of that lid connection. Next, I grabbed some 3/4 inch plywood and 2 feet by 2 feet to start with. I found the center point, then grabbed the bucket so that I can make sure and get that circle just tight enough so the bucket will slide down and rest on that lip you see. I'm using my Rockler circle cutting jig to make the circle out of the plywood. It's really easy to adjust, and it uses that pin there to go in the center, and then it's going to rotate around. After I got my measurements approximate, it was time to attach my router to the jig. Remember to take your router plate off, then you can screw the jig onto your router directly. After it was attached, I fine-tuned the dimensions, slid it up just a little bit, and I'm good to go. A quick little check just to make sure I'm good, and yes, on the money. Remember, you're doing half of the full diameter since it's rotating around the center point. I drilled a pilot hole, and then I can fit in my router bit perfectly. And by the way, I'm using a 1/4 inch straight router bit. Little by little, I just go around and make sure that that center point stays firm, and we are in business. After done, I removed the circle, and time to test it out with the bucket. Lift up the plywood, and oh no, the circle is not big enough. But that's okay. The reason I left it in the video is because I want to show you how you can fix it. All you have to do is screw in the circle and the outside to some plywood scrap to hold it steady to allow you to have that center point as you see there. Boom. A bigger circle diameter is cut with no problem. And yes, we did it. Next, it was time to drill a hole for the bolts to go through to attach the top caps, which will allow the legs to be secured. These were all measured out according to the spacing of the bottom of the vacuum. Next, I drilled the same hole through the middle of each cap. You have to hold on real tight because it likes to get away from you. The bolt just comes through from the top, and then the cap comes up underneath for it to be secured. Here you just ratchet it together. I'm doing a quick test assembly so I can test it all out. Now for the first test. As you can see, it goes on pretty easily. Push it down and good to go. Then I unboxed my Dustopper system. I decided to buy the package because I just thought for the money, it was worth it. The kit comes with the Dustopper, one hose, and one elbow joint. You have to go and buy another elbow joint to be able to attach it to your vacuum. I grabbed a real easy elbow with a brush, take the brush off, and it works. No need for the brush. See ya. Now I can connect the main line to the Dustopper. As you can see, the air is going to get sucked up into the Dustopper from the vacuum. Then you attach your main line just like you would on your vacuum, instead it's in the Dustopper. Of course I had to test it out and there is no loss of suction. Look at how great this thing's already doing. Now that I had the proof of concept done, it was time to fine tune my design. So I went back to my table saw and I cut 2 inches off of each side of the top just to make it nice and compact. I didn't want big edges sticking out. After that was done, I took my router and with a 1/4 inch round over bit, just smoothed all the edges. I don't know why I did the outside edges at this point because I still had the corners to cut off. Oh well. I wanted to make sure that my corners overhung the caps of the PVC pipe, so I did a quick measurement, then I grabbed my cutout to use as a radius. After that, you can grab an adjustable square to mark the edges so that you can transfer all of the lines to each other corner so that each corner is the same. Then use the same radius and just match up the lines. Nice. Okay, time to cut the corners. I wish I had my bandsaw for this, but since I don't, my jigsaw worked just fine. A little sanding just to make everything nice and smooth, and then doing the assembly. So you grab your bolt with a washer, stick it up through, and then place the cap on it, grab another washer, and then tighten that nut on it. So using a wrench on the bottom and a socket driver on top made it pretty easy. I like to go pretty tight just because I didn't want any movement. Quickly do the rest, and we're all good. I put the top back on because then I wanted to make sure and mark out where I was going to make my holes for my attachments. After I thought it through, I then took it back off and I used some of the attachments to mark out the circles. Luckily, it was the exact same diameter as one of my hole saws. It worked perfectly. So I drilled one hole, and by the way, a quick tip is you wait till that pilot hole's done and then you flip it over. That way you reduce your tear out. So here I flipped it over and came in from the bottom. For the next one, I actually tried doing it while the top was attached. It worked just as good. So I've got 2 holes cut out. Now I've got a third one to do, but it was a little bit bigger because it needed to be a little wider for that end attachment. So here I got out my jigsaw to cut a little bit wider hole. After I got the 3 holes cut, it was time to glue up the PVC legs. Here's that coupling I was talking about earlier. I was able to get a longer one so it can fit into that base all the way to keep it secure. As you can see here, it's 3 inches long. And here's a quick review of all the parts I used for each leg. This is the 2-inch diameter pipe that goes into that coupling. As you can see, you get that measurement from 2 inches inside the pipe. It's about 1.5 inches. It goes into that coupling. Then I've got the reducer here that reduces that 2-inch pipe down to 1.5 inches. That pipe is 28 inches long. it's gonna fit onto that reducer and go all the way up to the top and go into that cap, which is secured to the 3/4 inch plywood. Boom. To make sure that everything was secure, I used the official Odie primer and cement. And I gotta tell you, this stuff is strong. So be careful when you're using it and goes nice and slow. So you coat both sides in the primer, then you use the cement to activate it, and it is going to be tight. The one thing I learned throughout the process is you want to make sure and hold the piece together to make sure that it gets set really well. I didn't do that right away, and a few of them had a gap, so keep that in mind. So little by little, I just went through and attached each piece. So right there is a full foot of one leg, and repeat the process. One thing to note is that I did not do the cement at the top where it connects to the top cap, just in case I wanted to take the plywood off again. Next, I brought it outside to spray paint it all a matte black. I got my little helper here to make sure everything's going well. After everything was dry, I had two more little parts to assemble. This first one is a nice little clip that I attached to hold that bucket down. Earlier, you could probably tell that the bucket was kind of leaning forward because of that hose. This little clip rotates in place to hold that bucket secure. So I just drop the bucket in and then rotate the clip in place. All it is a 1/2 inch piece of plywood with a little notch cut out. Next is the cord wrap. I used a 1/2 inch piece of plywood for these as well, just a little strip and then two little rectangles. I drilled holes for the screws and then countersunk them so that the heads would fit underneath when I went to glue them together. Here I'm prepping each block with screwing in the two screws. A little bit of glue and then I'm ready to go. By the way, that little strip in the middle there is to keep them spread perfectly. As you can see, there's two holes in the top ready to go. After each riser was done, I glued a little bit on the top and then real gently screwed in the top plate. I already pre-drilled the holes, but I wanted to be careful because I didn't want to crack the wood. Sweet! Grabbed a paper towel just to clean up the glue and ready to grab that cord and test it out. I threaded it underneath just so it would always stay attached and wrapped it all around, and man, it's perfect. Now to slide my attachments in, and everything is at the right height. Next, I attach the hose and then curve it underneath, and yes, easy to grab. It's so nice to be able to just grab it from where I'm standing and rotate it around as needed. If I need the cord, I just take it from there and plug it in. In terms of cleanup, it's really easy. You just attach the top elbow and the lid just pops right off. And as you can see, the dust collects perfectly in that bucket. And then down below, when you take off the lid to check the filter, look at that. Sure, it's a little dirty, but not nearly as bad as the other one. Remember how bad the other one looked? Check this out. Yeah, that's pretty clogged. If we go back and compare to the other one, look at the bottom down there. It's almost empty. How cool is that? My favorite part of the Dust Separator Cart is how easy it is to move it around my shop. I don't have to bend over to grab it. I can plug the cord in easily. My attachments are readily available, and that suction is still awesome. And then not to mention cleanup, like we've talked about, is so great. And when I'm done, turn off the vac and my attachments fit in right there. Don't have to bend over. Sweet. I am so glad I took the time to build this Dust Separator Cart. I hope this video helped you or inspired you to make your own. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you're feeling good today, toss me a like. Thanks so much, and we'll see you later.